Hey everyone, Hobbs out here to give you my quick review of the new Black Widow movie that just finally came out in theaters, only after being delayed a year and me having to annoyingly see that trailer nonstop for about a year. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a good trailer at first, but you see anything enough times for that amount of time, it's gonna drive you nuts. But no, glad the movie finally came out and glad that this story was finally able to be told. The movie does feel, that it is a little over half a decade too late, because they definitely should have given Black Widow this solo story of a film forever ago. But either way, I'm glad that her story has finally been told. The movie does take place right after Captain America Civil War. So it's after she's run off because of the whole Sokovia Accords ordeal. So she decides the movie's about her, deciding to go back home, and then her and her sister basically discover that there is a antidote to cure everyone else that has been, mind washed to be spies, just like them. And now, unfortunately, they don't really do much explaining or any explaining really at all. At least that I could remember, or recall, or see in the film of where the antidote came from. They don't really do much explaining of like who created the antidote, where it came from. But either way, there's this antidote out there, and they're trying to, yeah, use it to cure all the other women that have been raised to be secret Russian spies for Russia. And Black Widow and her sister, they decide to go get their parents, or at least their parents that they knew from when they were little, to help them out. And the whole cast, when it comes to that family in this movie, the whole family dynamic and chemistry between the main cast is great. David Harbour and Florence Pugh really steal this film, and I definitely hope that their characters are further used in more MCU films. Um, Florence Pugh's character, especially, was such a standout, and I really hope that they don't do what they waited too long to do with Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow character, and just finally wait a decade to give her a movie. And I really hope they do have the balls and pull the trigger to give Florence Pugh her own movie or something too, because the way this movie does such a good job of introducing her character and other characters that they wanted to, even though Black Widow is dead. Now they can definitely continue the story of this movie. With her as a starring role, she definitely has the potential to be a big starring role. Unfortunately, as I said, there are great new set of heroes introduced in this film. Unfortunately, as with most Marvel films, the villains of the movie are a bit on the weaker side, although not as bad as some early Marvel movies villains. I know a lot of people who are diehard fans of the comics, Marvel in general, are not going to be a big fan of what they do with Taskmaster in this film. There has been a little word of mouth, going around whether or not it will actually be, the Taskmaster from the comics, or rather they're gonna reveal someone else to be Taskmaster in the movie. And I'll tell you who it isn't. So I'm not gonna tell you who is Taskmaster in the movie. I'll tell you who it isn't, just to let y'all know why you might be a little disappointed. So if you do consider that a spoiler, um, I'll just let's see. I will, don't want to put my hand in front of the camera there. I will take my hat off, and so once I take my hat off, that's why I'm going to be talking slight spoiler about Taskmaster. If you consider it a spoiler, I'm just going to be saying who he isn't, who he or she isn't, and yeah, if you consider that a spoiler, then when I put the hat back on, it'll be spoiler free from that point on. But yes, now I'm going to talk about who Taskmaster isn't in the film. Okay, so Taskmaster in the movie. If you're a big diehard fan of Taskmaster, prepare to be disappointed if you are expecting the Taskmaster, from the comics Troy Masters, because it is not him. I'll say that much. Yeah, they kind of pull what they did with the Mandarin a little bit in Iron Man 3, where they got us so excited, making us think that we were finally going to get to see the Mandarin, Iron Man's iconic arch nemesis, the iconic villain from the comics. and they kind of fooled us when it turned out it wasn't that person. It was actually someone else. So yeah, this film kind of does the same thing where this is still considered their version of Taskmaster, sadly, I guess. So it's not like they can do what they did with the Mandarin, I don't think, and introduce the actual character later on. I mean, I guess they still could, but it would be weird if they did that, considering someone else is already out there with the gimmick. But yeah, the character of Taskmaster, despite what they do with him or her, is does still make sense. It goes with the plot of the movie, what they do with Taskmaster at the end. Um, the character of Taskmaster does still come off as really cool at the beginning of this movie. Just unfortunately, at the end of this movie, during like the final battle, it's very underwhelming and cut very short, I feel like. But yeah, there is a cool fight though with Taskmaster at the beginning. But yeah, the as for like a climax, the climax of the finale of the film did unfortunately fall a little bit short for me. But yeah, at least when you do find out something like some other Marvel films, at least when you do find out some of the villains' motives in these films or why they are doing what they're doing, they do make sense. The plot is pretty coherent for the most part, despite not finding out where the antidote came from. And unfortunately, you never really find out. There is a lot of mention on, Black Widow being like the first one to escape of all these people being mind controlled and stuff. But you never really find out about how like her character originally escaped in the first place. We do get comments finally as to what happened in Budapest between her and Hawkeye. Since that's mentioned throughout like tons of the Marvel films. Everyone's always wondering what the hell would happen down in Budapest. Fortunately, we don't really get to see it. We do get to see a little bit of it, but you don't get to see Hawkeye himself in the film, sadly. Um, but you do finally get to hear kind of what did happen and what did go down. Fortunately, we didn't get to see it, but oh well. Most of the action itself, though, still in the movie is pretty good, and this movie does a lot of the action in this movie does hit harder, a lot harder than most Marvel films. It's pretty brutal for the most part, and it has some incredible IMAX sequences. I would definitely recommend seeing it in IMAX. Not the full 70 millimeter IMAX, because it's not shot in that, but yeah, it does have some great IMAX sequences nonetheless. And as I said, some of the action sequences are more brutal than the average Marvel film, and most people bash the average Marvel movies for being too humorous and soft and lighthearted. But this one actually does hit a lot harder. It's a lot sadder at certain points than most Marvel films, and has a lot more drama and edge than a lot of them do. Like the opening of this movie is like so dark. It's like one of my favorite openings in a Marvel film. But yeah, it's like pretty dark, and there's a lot of dark context in this movie, and they handle it really well. And as I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of how they handled Taskmaster in the movie, but what you do find about his character does match up with some of the plot early on in the film. But I again do think they did handle Black Widow's origin story and the whole story with her family perfectly. The dynamic between them was all great. I just wish we did get to find a little bit more about Black Widow's past, like you see what happened in Budapest and seeing how she herself got out. But they do a good job, with us finding out the backstory about her family and everything, and you understand why she is by the end of this film. Even more, you understand even more why she is such a hardened character that we see throughout the Marvel films. You find out still a lot about her past, and you understand, why she is the way that she is. And yeah, most of the action delivers, and as I said, it does introduce some great characters that can be used for great stuff in the future of the MCU. Post credit scene, there's a scene all the way at the end of the credits that's worth staying for. That does set up some really interesting stuff that I'm hella excited for to come up later on in the MCU. So yeah, again, if you're a Marvel fan, it's definitely one that is worth checking out. Hits harder than some of the other Marvel movies for sure. It still does have that Marvel humor in there, but this one, it plays off really well, and you can tell that it's needed because of how much more drama this one actually has compared to other Marvel films. And yeah, no, I think there are still some great action sequences until the end, where the climax does feel again a little bit underwhelming, but overall there are still great hard-hitting sequences and some dark moments in this film that actually make the humor in this film compared to some other Marvel films actually warranted, actually needed at some points. The comedy relief, which David Harbour's character does a great job in doing, um, actually feels earned. It feels like comedy relief that needs to be there, and does a great job at it. So yeah, delivers on the action for the most part, delivers on the humor, delivers definitely on the drama. I feel like harder than a Marvel film has ever done, and definitely has some of the hardest hitting action of any of the Marvel films. So yeah, again, if you're a big fan of Marvel, I say definitely recommend checking it out. And overall, I'd give this film probably four and a half. No, sorry, four out of 5 stars. But yeah, again, Marvel fan, definitely go check it out. Let me know what you think, and if you have seen the film, you want to discuss some stuff. Well, if you are gonna talk spoilers, I'd love to talk with you. But yeah, just say spoiler in the comments before someone reads it, you know. But yeah, if you saw the film, or what your thoughts are or wanting to see the film, anything, yeah, just let me know in the comments below. I'd love to talk to y'all there, and I will catch y'all later. Peace out.